the Dragon Ball universe, where limits are constantly broken and power is constantly sublimated, one name has always made both gods and monsters fear: Broly, the legendary Saiyan God. Not Kakarot, with the ability to reach Ultra Instinct in just 45 minutes. Not Gohan, who lost his form, but then became the strongest warrior in history in just one battle. And not the physical Frieza, who rose from the Super Saiyan Saga level to the level of Super Saiyan Blue in just 4 months of hard training. All of those feats, when compared to Broly, are just a pale warm-up before the real storm. From the first moment Broly appeared, he was the embodiment of pure power, far beyond the prediction of even the gods. Born at the same time as the angel Whis and the future god of destruction Beerus, Broly carried within him a destiny beyond the normal order. He was not just a warrior, he was a living legend. Like his Z timeline counterpart, Broly possesses powers far superior to any villain that has ever appeared in Dragon Ball, including those who are said to be capable of destroying entire living universes, such as Frieza and Cell. While Cell was once described as having limitless fighting power, surpassing even Kid Buu and Gohan, two beings who nearly collapsed the fabric of reality, Broly is still stated to be superior to all of them, which is truly insane. In the movie, Dragon Ball Super Broly, the dialogue emphasized a shocking fact. Training with his father Paragus was no different than no training at all. In other words, Broly achieved his superhuman strength almost entirely through instinct and innate potential. Without a trainer, without a god to guide him, without a gift of power, he was alone and still stronger than everyone. When he entered the battle with Kakarot and Vegeta, two warriors who had just gone through the tournament of power and faced the strongest warriors in the multi-dimensional universe, they had no idea that the real nightmare was about to begin. Broly appeared, not to provoke, but to crush. He approached like a beast awakened. The first punches were nothing more than a gentle prelude. But what made him terrifying was not just his initial strength, but the speed at which his strength increased over time. With each passing second, he became faster, stronger, more ferocious. In just a moment, he surpassed Vegeta in his base state, which seemed impossible, because at this point, Vegeta possessed 1,000 times more power than he did in his battle with Beerus. Time and space began to distort under the increasingly terrible intensity of the battle. Universes were shaken, dimensions began to shrink and crack. While Vegeta used Super Saiyan God, a state that was said to condense the power to break 7 layers of the universe in the macrocosm, Broly continued to escalate. As Vegeta poured all his strength into defeating Broly, something strange happened. He was not defeated but became stronger. Broly called upon the ancient power of the Great Ape energy. But unlike those who had lost control in that giant form, he remained human. This was the Akari Broly form, where instinctive energy and reason merged. In this state, even the blows of Super Saiyan God Vegeta could not shake him. He roared, crushing everything with a rage that was overwhelming, but controlled. Kakarot entered the battle as the last defender of the universe's hope. Legendary clashing Legend Super Saiyan against Legendary Super Saiyan. The collisions were so violent that the ground cracked, the air exploded in waves. When Kakarot used Godbind, a technique that trapped his opponent with divine power, Broly simply broke it with overwhelming force, causing the entire technique to fail before it could take effect. But all of this was just a prelude to the real nightmare. Realizing the need to exploit Broly's mad instincts, Frieza killed Paragus. In a moment of desperation, Broly exploded, screaming like a wild beast out of control. He broke through his limits, awakening his legendary form, Super Saiyan Broly, an entity without reason, only with primal rage. His attacks did not follow any rules of combat, only naked destruction. Vegeta joined forces with Kakarot, but it was still not enough. They decided to use the ultimate weapon, fusion. While Broly faced Frieza and kept him pounding for an hour, Kakarot and Vegeta practiced the Metamor dance. Twice they failed, but on the third try, Gogeta was born as a result of the fusion of the Saiyan Prince and the Angelic Warrior. When Gogeta stepped onto the battlefield, the definition of power changed forever. The battle between Gogeta and Broly was a symphony of chaos and greatness. Each punch tore through space. Each collision caused reality to crack, breaking all the laws of physics. Broly continued to grow, forcing Gogeta to continuously upgrade from Super Saiyan to Super Saiyan Blue. He did not fall, only grew more fierce. When Gogeta delivered the final blow to end the battle, Broly, who had transcended the limits of space and space, had also reached his breaking point. Their power warped the dimensions beyond the living universe, leading to an event described as super-dimensional. But before he was finished, Broly was saved by a wish to the Dragon God that sent him back to his home planet. The battle ended, but its aftershocks still echoed in the minds of all who witnessed it. Kakarot admitted one thing: Broly may have surpassed Beerus, the ultimate god of destruction. While Kakarot and Vegeta continued to unlock new forms, even Kakarot's son, Gohan, reached a completely different peak with his beast form. Broly quietly trained on Beerus' planet. Analysts even suggested that the completed Cell Max could be as strong as Broly, a statement that would shock the entire world. Overall, Broly's power can be classified as being on the level of a complex multiverse, even approaching the outer realm of reality, depending on the interpretation. His speed ranges from infinite to unquantifiable in any normal space. In the same amount of time that it took others years to develop, he went from being considered a warm-up for Vegeta to forcing Gogeta to use all his power in Super Saiyan Blue to hold him back. Broly is the ultimate embodiment of potential. He is more than a monster. He is a cosmic evil that cannot be controlled, cannot be measured, and certainly cannot be ignored. After being brought back to planet Vampa by the Dragon God, Broly is no longer the uncontrollable madman. He is still the warrior with the primal rage, but now, with Chilai and Lemo, the only ones who witnessed and believed in the remaining good in him, Broly begins a new life, a life no longer controlled by his father, no longer a tool of hatred. But it is in that rare peace that a new door opens to a power no one has ever achieved. Whis, Beerus' guardian angel, sees the terrible potential that lies hidden within Broly, a potential that far exceeds the standards of any warrior who has ever existed. And so, he was sent to Beerus' planet to begin his training, not to become a god, but to learn to control himself. This was the moment when Broly, from a mindless nightmare, began to transform into a being that could think, that could restrain, and that could also explode at the right time. The training under Whis' guidance was unlike any other form of training Broly had ever experienced. He was not forced to fight, not forced to exceed his limits, but instead, he was taught to sense energy, keep his mind stable, and most importantly, be aware of his limits, so that he could actively break them without losing control. And then the strange thing began to happen. Without entering Super Saiyan or legendary form, Broly was able to manipulate energy on par with the level of a god, just in his basic state. His body gradually adapted to the divine aura, gradually transforming his anger into an orderly source of power. His attacks were now precise, no longer wild, uncontrolled blows. Each impact with the air sent shockwaves that spread hundreds of miles. Every movement, no matter how small, distorted the gravity around him. He was no longer a roarer and destroyer. He was a warrior, a real warrior. During this time, Kakarot, Vegeta, and Gohan broke through their limits, one after another. Kakarot reached his full Ultra Instinct form. Vegeta unlocked the power of his destructive ego with the Ultra Ego form. Gohan crossed the threshold and awakened his beast form, causing Cell Max to fail. But amidst that wave of evolution, the name Broly was always present as a silent threat. He did not need a sudden awakening process. He was the only one who did not need a sudden transformation because he himself was a continuous transformation. Whis once warned that if Broly could fully control his inner power, he could be on par with the angels. It was not because he had achieved divine power through training, but because he was the embodiment of pure instinct and infinite evolution. And indeed, when Broly participated in the training match with Kakarot and Vegeta, what surprised them was not just the energy radiating from him, but the terrifying speed of adaptation. In just a few minutes, he learned to adapt to Kakarot's Ultra Instinct, and even Ultra Ego Vegeta's devastating blows couldn't slow him down. Broly didn't need to scream to unleash his power. He was silent, focused, and released his energy with just a glance, a breath, or a small movement. This made the universe wonder. If Broly could continue training like this for another year, 10 years, or just a few months, who else in the universe could reach him? Beerus, who once declared that he would destroy everything for the sake of a forgotten dream, also had to keep an eye on Broly. Not because he was aggressive, but because the energy within him was so extraordinary that it could change the balance between universes. If Broly lost control, Even a sneeze from him could blow up a dimension. And then, in a near-future scenario, when the gods of the universe convened a conference to deal with the threat from an ancient force, an entity that was beyond the law of Broly was the first name to be called. Not because he was the best warrior, but because he was the only one with enough potential to confront the indestructible. When the battlefield was a place where there were no rules, no reason, only primal instinct and pure power, Broly was the only choice. In the dim light of the cosmic horizon, when all warriors fell and time stopped, the entity called Broly still stood. Not screaming, not going crazy, not burning, just silently, steadily, ready to crush even chaos if it dared to step forward. In the moment when the universes began to shake, because an ancient entity was gradually awakening at the border of reality, something that did not belong to any timeline, was not under the supervision of Zeno, nor was it controlled by angels. An urgent meeting of the strongest warriors was held on the planet of Daishinkan. The names that were once associated with legend were all present. Jiren, who surpassed the god of destruction with pure will. Gohan, with his newly awakened beast form. Kakarot, in his perfected ultra instinct. Vegeta with his pure destructive ego. And Broly, the only entity that had never been called a god, but all eyes were on him. No one knew what that ancient entity was. All he knew was that he had been sealed in a rift between dimensions by Zeno himself, not because he was too strong, but because he was too undetermined. A form of energy that was out of phase with every layer of space-time structure. An entity that could make everything disappear just by existing. And now, that rift was cracking. Daishinkan, with a calm but profound gaze, turned towards Broly. No explanation needed. No persuasion needed. Just a nod was enough. Because only Broly, who possessed the power of evolution beyond time, and whose mental stability was reaching the absolute level, could touch the boundary that even an angel could not touch. And so, Broly entered. No farewell, no emotion, just a slight movement, and he disappeared from the cosmic plane, entering the dimension where the ancient entity was awakening. The air there had no color, no temperature, no gravity, only an endless void and the cracking sound of reality. The entity had no physical form. It existed as a chaotic vortex, screaming in a voice that did not belong to any living language. But Broly, his eyes glowing, stepped forward. There was no need to transform. There was no need to summon energy. The power he carried had transcended the concept of form. It was a state where energy, instinct, and will merged into an independent existence. Every step he took distorted the fabric of space. Every breath he took caused the layers of reality to stretch and vibrate. No greetings, no signals, just bursts of energy. The explosions were lightless, soundless, but each collision caused hundreds of dimensions to be destroyed, swallowed, restructured, and then disintegrated. The ancient entity moved like a shapeless whirlwind, but Broly responded with energy-based strikes that interacted with the fabric of existence. Each punch was not a mere physical impact, but a resistance to the entire unknown. No one but the angel could observe the fight. But Whis, who watched the fight from the space-time corridor, exclaimed for the first time in his life, "He is evolving beyond the definition of a living being." Because Broly was no longer simply a warrior. He was no longer a Saiyan. In the process of confronting the out-of-phase entity, Broly was forced to adapt at an immeasurable speed. He gradually blended into that unstable space. The atoms in his body began to restructure in an unconscious defense mechanism. His neurons burned, processing data so large that even a galactic supercomputer could not simulate it. Every time he was knocked away, he did not retreat. He turned back and became stronger. When the entity twisted time, attacking with Broly's own memories and future, he did not collapse. He absorbed. He turned pain into strategy, turned despair into a blade. He cut through reality with a punch, and time stopped. Finally, after trillions of collisions in the timeless space, Broly raised his head. His eyes no longer reflected light. They burned from within, as if he had opened the state of primordial superconsciousness, a state of existence that even Ultra Instinct was only a premise for. He no longer fought out of instinct, but out of an understanding of the overall structure. He saw the future of the blow, the memories of his opponent, and manipulated the energy, as if rewriting the laws of physics. The ancient entity that was once called the Primordial Rift stepped back, not because he was injured, but because for the first time, he could not predict the next punch. And in that moment, Broly charged. One last blow, no cosmic energy, no explosion of light, no scream, just a light touch to the center of chaos. And then, the unstable space exploded like a drop of water falling into fire. No light, no sound, just silence. When Broly returned, he did not need to go through the portal. Reality opened itself to welcome him. The angels bowed. Kakarot looked at him, no longer as an opponent, but as an entity on par with the gods. Daishinkan said only one sentence. He no longer belongs to this universe, but he chose to stay. From then on, Broly was no longer called a monster. He was recognized as the pillar of reality, the only warrior who had ever defeated an extraterrestrial entity and survived. And so, among billions of worlds, millions of gods, and countless legendary warriors,